So here we go. I'm going to ramble on about progesterone. Yay! This is actually a very popular video topic I did a couple of years ago, and there was some stuff I wish I would have said in it. Now it's been a couple of years and that video is rather old and I didn't have as good of video editing software. Figured it's about time for an update. So for those who are new to the concept of progesterone, what it is just yet another hormone in your body. It's typically thought of as a, feminine hormone, but everybody has this stuff. I mean, it's like testosterone, estrogens, and progesterone. Everybody has it, whether you're, assigned male at birth, assigned female at birth, intersex. We're going to have some stuff in us here. We just may have it at different levels. So anyway, progesterone is one of the hormones that's higher up in the hormone cascade, as I like to call it. So sex hormones are created from cholesterol, and they typically go something like, and I mean there's more than this, but just for like a crash course, there's like progesterone and pregnenolone and all this stuff up here, and then it can go over into hydroxy progesterone, androstenediol, DHEA, androsterone, blah blah blah, on down to like testosterone and dihydrotestosterone and estradiol and estrone and estriol and all this. So the hormones that we're more familiar with are actually more at the end of the hormone cascade here, but they were produced from all these other hormones converting into various forms until you reach these, and your body kind of does that based on what you need and your genetic profile and everything. And so when we're talking about progesterone and it starts way up at the top of the cascade, that's going to be something to keep in mind for later on in the video when we're talking about conversion into other hormones. So file that away. Now then, anyways, what do we know about progesterone? Well, everybody regarding trans medicine likes to talk about it as if it is like a magic titty pill. It's not that, so let me get that out of the way right quick. Definitely not a magic pill of any sort. A lot of people online, I think, like to stir the pot, basically, or fantasize that there is some kind of magic way of getting breast growth to just come up overnight and not have to do all the waiting that puberty typically entails. That's just not true. Anyone that's telling you they grew breasts like, like in several weeks, methinks they had surgery or some other thing that's causing them to retain water or something like that. That's not how progesterone operates. Progesterone operates just as slow as everything else. It's going to take months to years to finalize results. Now, regarding what we know data-wise about progesterone, there's not a lot of great data in trans medicine. There is some, but not a lot. Most of it you're going to find in regards to cisgender women's menstrual cycles. And what we see there is that typically progesterone levels are going to take a sharp rise right before ovulation when an egg is released from the ovary, and then they're going to kind of drop down and kind of stabilize, plateau level. And if that egg is not then fertilized, pregnancy, then at the end of this about 2-week period, you're going to see the progesterone levels just kind of drop like a stone to almost zero. And that's when you'll see the shedding of the uterine lining, the typical, bloods. So with that, we know a lot about how it interacts with the menstrual cycle. We know a little bit about how it interacts breast development wise for cisgender women. Not a whole lot though. There doesn't really seem to be anything set in stone. It just seems, everything that I've read, it's like, oh well, it seems to have something to do with like the development of the lobular and ductile tissue of the breasts. And that's all well and good, but they couldn't really nail down like what levels might be ideal for this or anything really. So in regards to trans medicine, what you'll see research-wise is you'll see, and usually it's going to be rather old studies from like 20 years ago, 30 years ago or so, when they were using synthetic forms of progesterone, which would be like medroxyprogesterone acetate, or like MPA is how that's usually called, or Depo-Provera, stuff like that. And nowadays we have the more bioidentical kind. So the curiosity here is, since those old studies kind of really, they didn't really tell us anything. Like half of them said, yeah, maybe it does help, and the other half said, no, it doesn't help. And so we're left like, okay. So nowadays that we have these better medications that are more bioidentical to what we produce in our bodies, will we have better effects? that be the question. And so, one, we really hope that people put out some more research. Anecdotally, I can speak on it, and I will. I'm gonna, that's another topic. I have a little list here. I'm trying to keep to the list so I don't ramble. Anyway, but most of what we have is just anecdotal, or you have some crazy person on the internet ranting and raving saying, yay, I got on progesterone, and 2 weeks later, triple D cup or whatever. They're lying, but and they're just trying to stir the pot or make someone feel bad because they can't afford progesterone. Because here's the thing, I've seen people who have never used progesterone and they have wonderful breasts, like they didn't need it, because like I said, you produce this stuff already in your body, and if your body has enough for what it needs and requires, you're gonna have good breast development anyway. This is definitely not one of those hormones that is an absolute requirement. Now, that being said, I would tell anyone who is having problems with breast development, let's say for your genetics, like when you look around at the cis females in your family and you look at your body size, shape, and type, if your breasts are smaller than what it looks like they should be, I don't mean smaller than what you think they should be, because nobody's happy with their boobs, whether they're cis or trans, nobody. That's why breast surgeries exist. But if you look at your family and they're rather large chested, and you look at your body and you're kind of built maybe like me, and but you're sitting here at an A cup would be rather, unusual on someone my size, and so you're looking at that. I would say I would give something like progesterone a try if you've already been on hormone therapy for 1 or 2 years maybe, because you really, in my opinion, let me just clarify that. I don't want people to think that there's some really solid hard research behind this. Most of it is anecdotal again. In my opinion, you are better served waiting to get on progesterone rather than just jumping right on it right away or during your first year. Because what it appears is that progesterone comes later in the breast development cycle of cis women, so that they have developed some breast tissue already before progesterone starts doing its little thing on that tissue. So I guess it would be a case of saying, if you have nothing really there to work with, what then is progesterone going to do? It doesn't create something from nothing. It's more, I guess what I would call it is it's more a maturing hormone, so it matures out the breast, the tissue that's already there. It can kind of round it out and whatnot. It doesn't necessarily get in there and make them huge, whatever, but it will mature what you already have. And so it seems like it would be, a better idea then to wait until a certain point in development before you then jump right onto progesterone. Again, that's just my opinion. I know Dr. William Powers in Michigan seems to be of the same opinion of, it's better to wait to a certain point of development before you get on. And I mean, there's no time clock ticking on this. I've had people who have been on hormone therapy with just estrogen for 15 years, and they give progesterone a try, and it works for them, or it doesn't. I mean, not everybody who tries this stuff is going to have it work, but if it's going to work, the point I'm trying to make is it still can work pretty much at any point in your hormone therapy. It's not like you have, oh man, if you don't get on it in 2 years, well, you're just done. You can't try it anymore. Nope, you can try it within, year 2, year 5, year 10, year 15, whatever, it's fine. But again, I do advise waiting until you have a certain degree of breast development and tissue already there before you go adding this additional hormone in there. Now, on to, options for progesterone. So most people in the U.S., keep in mind that I'm practicing in Mississippi, and there are various types of medications available worldwide. Here in the U.S., in Mississippi, the most commonly available is going to be the Prometrium capsules, and those are those little bioidentical progesterone capsules. They come in 100 milligram, 200 milligram doses, and typically people will take those, once nightly. I usually start with 100 milligrams a night. for 3 to 6 months, and then if we're not seeing results at all, then we go up to 200 milligrams nightly. This can give you somewhat of a sleepy side effect though, so it's something to be aware of. Now, if someone does not get the sleepy side effect, and they want to take, like, instead of a 200 at night, they want to take like 100 twice a day, then they can do that, because the half-life of the oral progesterone is rather short, and it's 8 hours or so. So breaking it into 2 doses during the day can actually help, keep your levels up and everything. But there are arguments against that, because like I mentioned back in the cisgender cycle, you see progesterone rise and fall and everything. So some people think maybe it's better to have it rise and fall like that, Who's to say what's right? We don't really have a lot of data on that right now. I have people right now that are on those capsules and they take them for half of the month or for 10 days of the month, and then they go off of it, and they're trying to mimic the cisgender cycle. I don't really see anything in particular better results from either taking it every single day or cycling it like that. Whatever. To each their own. And then, in other countries, I know there's medroxyprogesterone acetate, the MPA, the little pills and everything. So they do have those pills here in this country. Usually they're like a 5 milligram or whatever. I don't typically prescribe those though. I don't see those as much anyway in the US. I see it more prescribed in other countries. And I also see like a progestin, not progesterone, but progestin cyproterone acetate in other countries. That's not available in the US, but that's typically used as like a T blocker or whatnot in other countries. But so MPA, medroxyprogesterone acetate, typically comes in a pill form. And the reason I don't typically prescribe this is because it has a higher side effect profile with it, and it's a synthetic progesterone. I would rather someone, take the bioidentical if possible. Now, another option is taking these rectally. Some people will use the capsules and just poke a little pinhole in the capsule and then insert nightly. That's perfectly fine. Or you can have a compounding pharmacy actually make rectal suppositories, which may be a little bit easier for people that have trouble holding really tiny stuff, because I'm here to tell you those progesterone capsules are teeny. But anyway, so that's another option. It does tend to absorb better than when you're taking it by mouth, because when you take stuff by mouth, the liver just demolishes like 90% of what you're taking there, so you kind of end up wasting some of that pill. Rectally, then you get better absorption and probably a slightly better end on the half-life. Not terribly so though, but maybe 8 to 10 hours of half-life instead of just like 6 to 8 or something like that. But anyway, so you do absorb more of it, so I do recommend rectally over orally if you're having trouble, especially with oral not working. Now, one of the other things you can do is the topical progesterone. Cisgender women will have this mixed in their, like whenever they go through menopause, they'll have it mixed in their estrogen cream, and they just kind of apply it on their inner arm. For trans feminine people, I would advise getting a progesterone cream and applying it directly to the chest itself for up to maybe a year, 6 to 12 months or so. And what I typically see when people do this, if they have success with it, is that it will cause better coloration and size increase on the areolas, as well as the breast tissue itself. Now, this being said, whenever I'm saying, apply this and do this and whatever, a lot of these options are kind of restricted for folks because of cost. Because whenever you start talking about topical creams and, rectal suppositories and stuff, usually these are going to be going through a compounding pharmacy, and they can end up costing quite a bit. Compared to the little capsules. I mean, the little capsules, whenever you're talking about like 20 or 30 bucks a month, and then you're talking about, specialized cream or suppositories and stuff that could run, depending on the area of the country you're in, $60 to $80 a month. Like, that's a significant cost difference. And a lot of people are just not going to be able to sustain that or even start it. So I don't specifically recommend one regimen over the other because of that whole cost problem there. And these are things through a compounding pharmacy. Typically, your health insurance is not going to be covering that. Because it's made to order and it's made with ingredients that are not commercially like approved by, you know, all the authorities and all this other crap. So you will, you know, most definitely be paying out of pocket for these. And so while I say that, you know, you do get better absorption with the topical or the rectal suppositories or whatnot, if you can't afford them, well then shit, you know, you got to use something else, whatever, no shame in it. So let's talk about, just briefly, you know, there is an injectable form of progesterone. I don't really recommend it much though, because the actual injectable isn't a depot forming progesterone. It's just like you give yourself a shot and it's got a half-life of 6 to 8 hours and then it's gone. So you would literally have to inject yourself like every day or twice a day to really keep your levels where they need to be with that injectable form. It's not really that great. Some people will say, you know, well, do the Depo-Provera injection that cis women typically use for birth control. The reason I don't typically prescribe Depo-Provera shots is because, again, that's a synthetic form of progesterone, so it's not really what I'm going for. But anyway, so moving on, let's talk about conversion into other hormones. So this is a big problem, and I would say that success rate wise with use of progesterone, and this can be highly dependent on, you know, if someone's using pills or rectally or cream or whatever. So I mean, in best case scenario, let's say that money was no object and you're using, you know, topical directly to the chest or whatever. I would say people have, you know, with that, they probably have closer to a 40, maybe a 50% success rate with seeing some actual like significant changes to the breast tissue. But whenever you factor in all the other kinds of progesterone that are being taken and everything, when money is a factor, which let's live in reality, folks, it's a factor. I typically see more of like maybe a 30% success rate with the use of progesterone orally and or using the oral capsules rectally. Now, that's not to say just give up, it's total trash. I mean, hey, whatever, it's worth a try if you need to try it. The thing that I see that I don't like is that progesterone, remember how I said it was at the top of the hormone cascade, and it converts into all these other hormones as it goes, and your body is programmed to do certain things with certain hormones, and the way you take it can sort of dictate as well. So progesterone can convert into other hormones, and so then you take it and it's converting into something else that isn't going to help with breast development, and well, that just sucks. I see that happen the other percentage of the time. So 30% success rate, 60% failure rate, and that's, you know, that 60% failure rate is going to be people who are either converting it into estrogens or androgens. Converting it into androgen is nobody's idea of fun. So androgens are masculine hormones, or typically thought of masculine hormones, but like I said, everybody has all these same hormones in them. It's not like only men or anything like that. So let's say if you're taking progesterone and your body is just like, well, I'm just going to convert it into androgens. Well, usually what will happen is you'll take the progesterone, and within a relatively short amount of time, a few days, a couple weeks, you'll start seeing androgenic effects, meaning effects that you would normally associate like with testosterone. It may be, you know, a different androgen, a different masculine hormone, but the effects can be very similar to what testosterone causes. So increased bottom activity that's just random, or increased libido, or perhaps like your facial hair wasn't growing in very fast, but all of a sudden it is, and there's like no stopping it. Body hair as well gets in there. So if you start seeing those sort of things whenever you get on progesterone, more than likely what's happening is you're converting it into some type of an androgen, and you're not really going to get any breast development benefit from it. Now, some people take it and they get increased libido, and they like that. They don't care that, okay, so it's not working for breast development, but it improved my libido, and I kind of wanted that. Other people may not like that. I would advise not to take it anymore. For those that it converts into like estrogens and such, usually that's not really an issue. Some people report that, you know, they feel a little bit more moody, or that their mood stabilizes one way or the other, and they may or may not like it. And they may or may not want to stop it if they know, you know, it's not doing anything for breast development, but all it's doing is sitting there hanging out for maybe mood stabilization, or if it makes their mood worse, then I definitely wouldn't advise continuing to take it. But anyway, so these conversions into other hormones can be very problematic, and there's not anything that I'm aware of right now that, like, if you're taking pills and you know it's converting into an androgen, that you can do that will, like, stop it cold from doing that. You can try switching methods, like if you're taking pills, you could try it rectally or by cream. The method that I see the lowest rate of conversion is probably going to be the topical, applied directly to the chest. More than likely, that's just because it's being applied directly where you want it to go. So like with a pill, you take it and that progesterone circulates throughout the entire body, hitting all these different receptor sites and things throughout the rest of the body, as well as a small amount interacting with the chest, whereas all of it gets placed here towards the chest. And yes, it will absorb systemically from there, but a lot of it is also going to be directed here, and it doesn't have as much time and travel, so to speak, in the body to have the time to convert. Now, what is the rate over that? I really, no studies on that. I'm speaking anecdotally right now on what I see with my patients who do that. So anyway, so a lot of it depends on cost, availability, you know, if you can or can't do something, you know, like there are some people who just don't have the flexibility to be doing anything rectally. I mean, whatever, you know, all of those are valid concerns, be it physical concerns, financial concerns, or whatnot. You have to do what's right for you. But again, I'm going to say this is not something that's required in a feminine transition. It is not something that you absolutely have to do. It's one of those things that I put out there as optional for my patients around about the time whenever they hit 1 year. I usually start talking to them about it, and at 2 years I definitely offer it in case they want to give it a try. But there's no hard and fast rules here as to, you know, when to start it, when to not start it, you know, what's the best anyway. So like I said, you just have to kind of educate yourself, talk to your healthcare provider, and do, you know, what you feel is best for you. If it doesn't work, don't feel bad. Like I said, there's plenty of people that take it and have absolutely no results from it, and it could just be that your own breast development has not come along far enough yet for progesterone to really do anything for. Other people have anecdotally put out there that they think taking progesterone too early in a transition could potentially like stall, not stop entirely, like not stunt, but stall breast development because the stuff that's needed for it to act on isn't there yet. I don't know. I've seen stuff that looks like that, but then again, with transition, stuff is so slow and so subjective. A lot of times it's very hard to call what the problem exactly is. But just be aware that that thought process is out there, that if you take it too early or whatnot, that you may get, one, no results, or two, it may stall. And I mean, you can just come off of it and then revisit it later if that's the case. I mean, if you take it early in your transition and nothing happens, I would advise stopping taking it and then maybe give it a year or two and revisit progesterone again if you want to. Again, not a requirement. So be aware of conversion into other hormones, and you know that there are various options, and if one option doesn't work, that's not going to mean that another option may not actually work for you. I've seen folks before that tried pills, they didn't work, they went to cream, it worked. And then I've seen people who did that and neither of them worked. It's the luck of the draw, it's genetics, it's kind of unpredictable so far with what we have available now. Now, some people have asked me, like, when should you draw labs on progesterone and what should they be? Well, here's another area where nobody really knows. And so I've seen it postulated that, you get your labs drawn 6 to 8 hours after taking your dose of progesterone, which is pretty hard if we tell you to take it at night, because, I mean, if you took it at 10 o'clock at night, and 8 hours later is going to be 6 in the morning. It's pretty difficult to get it that perfect, but hey, whatever. But anyway, I've had folks say, maybe 8 to 12 hours after you have taken your last dose of progesterone, that your levels should be maybe up to 12 ng/ml. And I've seen others that say lower than that say 4. So apparently people think somewhere between 4 to 12 ng/ml is where it should be. With regards to cisgender levels, of course, whenever cisgender women are pregnant, it goes upwards of 200s, 300s. But of course, that's a very short period of time in their lives. Typically with their usual menstrual cycle, it goes anywhere from close to 0 at like 0.2 ng/ml up to around like 30, maybe 40 ng/ml, something like that. But again, this is just pieces of the month. Like whenever it peaks at that high thing, that's like a few days it peaks, and then it levels off, and it's maybe 15 to 20 maybe, and then it drops, and I don't know. Maybe folks that are coming up with these averages of like 12 are just taking the numbers that it is through the month and just kind of trying to average them out. But the the secret sauce is just not known right now. So typically it's very hard to get a good draw level on progesterone, and there's no real set, determined lab level that people are shooting for. I personally shoot for like the 12 to 20 range if it's been drawn like somewhere 10 hours after their last dose, plus or minus 2 hours. But again, that's more anecdotal. There's just not anything out there credible that I've seen yet, other than some other anecdotal evidence from other providers who do this. Hopefully, one of these days, one of us will get some kind of grant money and be able to take the time to actually like do the numbers and do the studies and everything. But I'm here to tell you that stuff is hellaciously time-consuming and expensive a lot of times, which is probably why nobody's really done it anytime recently. But anyway, so hopefully this kind of second progesterone video helped people understand what progesterone is, where it sits in the hormone cascade up top, and then all the way down to testosterone and estradiol that we're more familiar with, how it applies in cisgender bodies, how it applies potentially in transgender medicine, what your options are, via oral, rectal, topical, whatever, what the success rate is that at least I'm seeing here in Mississippi, is and also the potential conversion of progesterone into other hormones. Definitely be aware of that, as well as what labs may be suggested for levels with regards to progesterone. So anyways, as always, I hope somebody watched this and got some kind of good information. This actually ended up longer than my original progesterone video, which, crap. I meant to make it shorter, but it never seems to happen the way I want it. Yeah, y'all have a fun time, and hope you learned something. Bye!